All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's meeting on 22nd of April, 2022 of the Node.js API. Before we get started with our usual business, does anybody have any announcements they would like to make? Nope. Okay, so then let me share my screen and we will go through our normal run through. All right, so first we'll just have the milestones here. First one that we have is stale issues to discuss. There hasn't been anything newly added. We have this one that we can open up just to see if there's been any work done on this. This is failure on crash with callback scope close on testing. Legendicast, have you been able to make any headway on this one?
No, sorry, I didn't have any progress on it.
Okay, no worries. Keep that open then. And the next one that we had is this one here, which was migrating from man to object wrap, some way to determine the property name. And we discussed this, I guess, last week. And we basically came to was this the one that we came to the conclusion that it wouldn't be easily doable with today's implementation of Node add-on API. Let's just go over this last comment that was made here. Man uses object template, which has proxy-like methods for object getters and setters. In Node API, we use function template to add instance and static properties. So then in order to mimic this behavior of man, we would need then to create a new implementation that uses object template instead.
I'm in doubt that if the object template API is available in other engines, since the API provided by object template is not very compliant with the spec. I'm doubted about that.
Right, and so it's my proposal actually. It's what I would like to discuss today. I think we can expect from all engines to implement proxy. Like a proxy is actually native JavaScript construct. So my question to the team: should we implement a Node API which kind of mimics proxy-like stuff? So technically, even if JavaScript engine does not have object template like the EV8, we can have it been implemented on top of proxy, JavaScript proxy.
Yeah.
Right. Because with proxy, you can add hooks for the different methods or different actions that are done on the object, such as getting the property name or listing object methods and things like that. All of these different hooks here.
Yeah, like if see on the left, what handler can give us, for example, method apply, it would actually simulate if this object will be called as a function. Method with handler construct would help us to, if somebody uses new with our object, so think if it uses the constructor, so then we have all these different define property, delete property, property descriptors. So technically, all this kind of wide range of stuff which technically object template offers. It's also here we can find on the proxy template. But in this case, we can be really kind of have this kind of generic JavaScript kind of interface to work with any JavaScript engine, is what I believe. And as a proof of concept, this new API, I can also implement on top of Hermes, because technically I already have Node API implemented on top of Hermes JavaScript engine. And obviously they don't have object template, but they do have proxies. And I believe we can do this there.
Yeah, if the new API is defined very limited to the proxy ability, the reason that I can see that there are many abilities exploited by the object template API, like say native properties, they are not very similar to the proxies. So I'm saying that we should strive to provide API that only providing abilities that we can do with proxies.
Okay. Would this need to be something that is implemented inside the core, or could this just be something that's done on top of what we already have? If that question makes sense. Because I don't see, because if we're using this, if we're using the proxy object, I'm just thinking that it's possible that somebody would be able to use this object as is with our existing Node API methods.
A quick thought about the mimic polyfilling the ability in pure Node add-on API is that we can try to wrap the object with a proxy JavaScript API so that we can just get it from the global and wrap it with a proxy. But one problem I can tell is that we are losing the ability to get wrapped native object since we cannot get the wrapped native object from the proxy object. So that's what my preliminary thought idea about the implementation. So basically the proxy is a little bit different from what the object template provides. There are a wrap object around the target object with the proxy, and the object template is not, and we cannot get the wrapped native object with the proxy.
I see. So then, like, one implementation that I'm thinking is that if the developer wants to be able to have these sort of like dynamic properties or whatever, it could be the case that from the JavaScript side, they would end up creating a proxy on here they would pass the object wrapped method, and with their handler, inside their handler, there they would be able to do sort of that dynamic nature that they have. So if they wanted to, for example, have different properties that sort of exist based off of what let's for example define property get own keys apply construct.
Yeah, with handler.get, it's
Yeah,
what will be exactly what the developer asking there.
Right. So for example, if they wanted to, so like within this handler, they would be able to call some other explicit method that does exist on the object wrapped method that they would be able to pass in the property name. And then from there, they'd be able to do any sort of dynamic calls on the native side because they've passed in the property name from the JavaScript side. And if this is like an implementation that I don't see that would be necessary in order to or rather, I don't think there would be any additional work needed on the Node API side in order to support this.
So what we can do, like, so it sounds like we have what I'm hearing like from our discussions. That technically we're saying that proxy can be a good approach, right? And the question, like, do we need to do any extensions to the Node API itself in order to achieve this goal? So what I can do, I can try to create new unit test which uses existing Node API to achieve all these different goals first. And if this unit test can work just on top of existing APIs, we can say, yes, we can use it as an example to questions like this. And we're pretty much done. But if while I kind of implementing this unit test, I face some issues and we'll say like, oh, we need to do something else. Then I can bring it to the next meeting next week. Is it a good plan?
Yeah, I think that sounds good. Because of course, just like from our initial thoughts right now, I guess it's difficult to know if there would be any problems, and we'd only see that if we actually get down to the nitty-gritty and try to do some development with it. So I think that's a good idea.
But technically, in this case, it means we will not use object template, but we rather put this implementation on top of proxy functionality to start with. Right.
It would be a combination of proxy with our existing object wrap, which uses the function template.
Right. Yes.
Mm-hmm. A wrapper on the natively object wrapped objects. Using this approach, we may be able to be able to create the dynamicness that is requested in this original post.
And I must tell you that I did this stuff a year ago on top of Chakra JavaScript engine. I had to do like 4 different traps, like get, set, I think like get own properties and something. It was like 4 different traps.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So it's something which I know that I used to do. And I even point in the chat like this code which does exactly that.
Maybe for example, passing a let's see, a get handler. Pass the property name to a native method provided on the underlying object wrapped object. If just determining if we needed to enhance the Node API for anything. How does that sound? Get in the native method. Okay, I will comment this. All right, then I think that is the end of the stale issues. So we'll go ahead and close that. Then tracking issues that have been reported. Nothing additional here. But we will go here, like I always do, and sort of check the weekly downloads. We had a small dip over here. And usually what I blame the dips on are perhaps holidays or anything like that. And we did just recently have Easter, so that could be what this is attributed to. But we are, of course, still looking fine with this. Then next we have drive towards full coverage. Did we have Jack end up joining? Because I don't see the participants list. No, okay. So this is sort of what Jack has been working on, and I don't think he has created any additional PRs for testing. While we're there, we can just go.
I think yes. I think that Jack did one P paragraphs.
Oh, let's see.
Yes, for I think.
Oh, this one, yes. Yeah. Okay. Add test coverage for async context. Closing the async coverage, async context coverage issue. All right. Make callback, assert context. And we have these. So it uses async hooks, resource name, create hook, formatting, set interval, destroyed, resolve events. Okay, so then this will be one that if the team can take a look at to see if they see any issues. And this is meant to close out what he said here, 1038. For, I guess, this usage here. So it's the bottom one without a resource, and possibly also grabbing the environment.
Yeah.
All right, so we have that one. Okay, and I don't think there's anything else for tests there. Enable debug testing, and this is something that Michael's been working on. I don't think there's been any additional work since last time, so we'll move on. And then we have the issues from this burn down list. I think we usually, yeah, we don't really have anything here. So let's just go to the repo. Are there any pull requests that someone, or issues that someone would like to bring up? Otherwise, we will just sort of go through the list.
I created a new pull request, which I need someone to put with Node API tag.
Did you do it on core?
So it's 42780. So yes, it's about adding explicit calling conventions to all our functions and all function pointers.
Okay. The Node APIs is a generic API. Does not specify calling conventions. Okay, which is critical. Yep. It's not important for x64 or non-Windows. For Windows x86, there's multiple conventions, and their mismatch causes a runtime crash. Oh, okay. I previously added CDECL to JS Native API, but still crashes on 86 because it was not added to the function pointers. Okay, the solution. We're adding CDECL to all functions and functions pointers that target Win32 platform. 2 new macros. NAPI CDECL, expand that for Win32 and nothing to other platforms. NAPI status to be expanded to NAPI export, NAPI status, NAPI CDECL to avoid long prefixes for functions and still keep it readable. Okay, this makes sense. The PR sets CDECL as the calling conventions because that's the default for C. It would be ideal to use standard calling conventions to match Windows API because it produces more compact code. My main concern is that may change existing code. So if Node.js is not shipped for 86, then it may still be safe to use std call instead of CDECL. I see. Okay. I mean, that sounds reasonable. Were you able to have a repository or anything that reproduces this crash on Windows 32-bit?
Yeah, so technically, the story, like I mentioned here, like we're using this Node API on top of V8 engine, and we're using this V8 engine for React Native. And inside of Office, Microsoft Office, we're using this React Native with V8. And thankfully, then we started to use it. We saw these crashes on a kind of release version of x86. And this is what Baka was working last week to fix in our code. So, and realized that while I kind of changing my kind of our copy of this JS native API.h in our repo, I thought it may be beneficial to all other users of this JS native API.h in effectively in a core Node API as well. Because the issue, like imagine that what happened in our case, because Office itself by default using std call as the calling convention, and this DLL being compiled with std call. And thankfully, then this, because we don't have specified calling convention, so this function pointer is thought to be std call, but really is being accepted as CDECL on Node API side, and as a result, we have crashes during even initial JavaScript loading because we need to use always native modules.
Gotcha. Okay. So here you've added those new defines that you mentioned. And then I think you had another one for an API status here.
Right. So I kind of, my goal was actually introducing this NAPI status mostly. It looks like almost as it used to be before.
Right. Would then this NAPI status macro also end up being used on the Node add-on API side?
Yes, I also changed Node API as well.
I mean, the C++ wrapper, because we have some things that return an NAPI status in ours.
I didn't change that yet, but it will probably be the next logical step if we. I think the C++ wrapper is not so sensitive because C++ wrappers is non-ABI safe, like they always supposed to be consumed as a header files, so they're not so much concerned. Okay. But because these C functions actually on our DLL surface, like ABI safe surface, I think I'm open to any suggestions about macro. Should we have this macro or not? Like we can be very explicit about it, but main point that we must specify calling conventions explicitly in order to be really counted to be ABI safe API.
Right, that makes sense. That makes sense.
I wish we would have a much better approach than we can simply say this is calling conventions for this specific header file, but C++ does not allow us. C++ only allows us to say calling conventions per function or per the whole DLL, the whole module. And if somebody chooses different default, if we don't specify it explicitly per function, we effectively start failing.
Right. Okay. Okay. Well, I mean, it makes sense to me. So let's see what the rest of the team has to say.
If you
they
could
were
add
already
this
done.
Node API tag.
I apparently can't.
Oh,
Yeah, that's okay. It's interesting because I am a member of the team.
are you logged in?
I am indeed logged in. Let's see. Am I a member? I am a member, so I don't know why I don't have access. But I guess Nick or Legendicast or somebody, if you could add the Node API label to this issue, that'd be great.
Yeah, I can do it.
Perfect, thank
Okay.
you. And then I guess you were also mentioning before we started the call that you were seeing some test failures for things that are not related to your PR. Would this be one of them here?
No, this is I think this sun fails every other time. It's probably not a big deal.
Gotcha.
It was different one. It's when trying to merge. It's about remember get all properties. Every time
Yes.
Michael is actually about to send, there's something else popping up, like it's there forever.
Okay. So I mean, I'll just put a quick comment in here. Okay. It is not particularly needed for the ABI stability guarantees that Node API has. Okay. Oh, we just. I'll put this as a comment. And then this will be one that eventually the rest of the team, since they're tagged with this tag, they could look at. All right. Are there any other PRs or issues that people wanted to bring up specifically?
I have a few other outstanding PRs, but I'll let other people speak first. I don't want to take all the time.
I have one that was actually closed, and it was merged and closed. So I'll just give a quick update to that. And this was to resolve the hanging tests that we had for thread safe functions. This is one that we've been struggling with for a bit because I couldn't reproduce locally, but then I was able to get access to the test machines, which I was able to reproduce it there pretty much every time. And if you remember, we were talking about how it uses a condition variable in order to wait for the, because it starts different threads and it uses a condition variable for sort of thread locking and whatnot. And the issue was that it was under certain circumstances, certain issue, execution paths or whatever, the main thread would notify the condition variable before the other thread would actually wait for it. So since the wait would happen after the notify, it ended up blocking. And we fixed this by adding the predicate to the wait, which basically skips the wait if this condition is true. And what this test is doing in this sort of delayed TSFN is that it creates threads without having the thread safe function attached to the thread's data or whatever, and then the main thread ends up setting the thread safe function after some time. So when the thread is created, then it sets the thread safe function. So then the predicate that's needed to see if we actually should wait is if the thread safe function is not set. And if it is set, then you can skip the wait. And this seemed to resolve the hanging issues that we were seeing.
Yeah, this is correct fix. I also had some issues with conditional variables before. So technically, because of their nature, they also can be sporadically wake up during wait. So we must always, ideally, whenever we're using conditional variables, we always need to provide some predicate and check some variables. So technically, we're using the conditional variables as notification mechanism, but kind of condition itself must be always our kind of custom condition. So it's the right fix. It's great to see.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I think I saw, because I think the example that's given on like c++.com or whatever that website is doesn't have the condition in the example, but of course it has this other signature that gives the predicate. And then it says it's used to protect against those sporadic wake-ups that you were mentioning as well. So then this was merged this week and seems to pass all of the CIs. Michael said that everything is green again. So now what I can do, excuse me, is rebase the format all code PR and work on that one again. And this time when I rebase it, I'll separate the JavaScript commit into two, one for the automatically fixable ones, and then another commit for things that had to be done manually, just so that we can see those a little better. That's all the updates I have. So back to the floor for anyone else.
I think that now I can start for new release because the CI is green and Michael did the regression for some commit that
This one here.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So what do you think? Could I start working on the new release?
That makes sense to me. Did the previous release have this regression in it, or was it just in master and not released yet? Do you know?
Yeah.
Like, did the previous release have this regression?
The previous release don't have the changes that
This one here.
we introduced the changes only on the main, not in the previous release. So
Okay.
I think that I can start working on that, and yeah, as usual, I start creating an issue. But I think that I don't have any blocking things for making arrays. Do you agree?
I also don't think so. Let's see if there's any move const from, I think. Oh, I need to find this. Do we see any additional PRs that we want? I'm not familiar with this one. Remove redundant string creation. Could we change string constructs?
Okay, so what makes sense for me is to open the issue and ask everybody if we need some new things to make the release, and wait for some days, and then I can start working on that.
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
Okay.
Because I'm not familiar with some of these PRs here. It'd be good to see the everyone else's input on that.
Okay.
All right. Anyone else? I think you mentioned that you had some additional PRs that you wanted to go through.
Yeah, there are two PRs also in the works. I just want to bring them again to the team's attention. One of them is 42651. It's about implementing these pure finalizers we discussed. So I just want if people can have a look on this change, because I still don't have probably no new unit tests on documentation, but because it's kind of a relatively big change, I want to kind of hear first some initial feedback from the team. If it's approach we want to go with, sounds like worth to proceed this direction.
Right. Okay. So we can ping in here to get some feedback from the team. And provide feedback. This approach works well before he continues going through unit tests and other implementation details. All right. Yes, I remember this one being brought up. And then there was some discussion that it would end up changing these, the implementation for these methods. But since the old ones are under an API wrap, it's okay now with these new ones being under Node API. So there's no breaking changes because we're only adding stuff. That's correct?
Right. And also, instead of adding additional parameters, I changed the way how we pass in parameters to these methods. If you look inside, that all these parameters now is a part of one struct. So like if in future we need to change it, so we just need to update this struct. So technically, I also kind of laying the foundation for us to be able to expand these parameters if we ever need to do in future. I introduced new struct called, I think, like native data, and this native data encapsulates void star for data itself, finalizer hint, and a bunch of other stuff, plus a version of the struct. So technically, we can version it in future if we need to. Yeah, so it's right now, yeah, over here. And with flags, it's where we kind of we can control different behavior of this native data. So currently it's just single flag, which pretty much differentiates between two different finalizer styles, but we can potentially add more flags in the future. So technically, it also kind of make it more extensible for the future versions, if you like.
Okay, let me see. All right, yeah, that's a good implementation detail.
I can go ahead and
yes,
implement unit tests just for people to see it in how it works. Because so another kind of another side effect, what I want to get with this struct, I can simply in C++ side we can create, for example, conversion of any lambda to this struct. because previously it was not possible because we need to kind of spread it up and we need to do a lot of extra work. But now, like, because it's a predefined struct which has certain pointers and things, and I think it should be possible to have some C++ template to convert any lambda to this struct now, if we want.
Gotcha. Yeah, I think it would be. I think it would be nice to see an example in a unit test, especially. This was to resolve the issue where if you were creating a lot of objects that are object wrapped in a loop, they were not finalized correctly. Is that correct?
Yes. Because currently we run all our finalizers as a part of set immediate, which effectively happens after we run main JavaScript. And the original bug, like a developer was, they're doing some heavy kind of UI, they're creating a lot of UI related objects. So they're creating a lot of them. And they saw like this kind of memory leak.
Right.
They fix their code by introducing this await keyword, but we probably want to have a more better fix for the future.
Right. I guess if you could show in your unit test sort of how, like, an implementation where something as simple as this ends up not causing a memory leak, that would be, I think that would be good.
Okay. It wasn't real memory leak. It's just kind of memory was cleaned up occasionally after some time, but they had spike of this memory. Like,
memory spike, yes, that would be a better term then. Absolutely. Okay.
I'll do. So I just want to make some progress on this PR as well.
Okay, then where's my comment? There it is. Okay. Anyone have any other PRs or issues that they would like to bring up?
And one more, also kind of we discussed before, but again, I want to bring to attention. It's actually 42557.
Okay, allow an API ref to keep the value of any type.
Right, based on our last discussion, I had changed design. Like instead of having completely new APIs, I am actually changing behavior of an API ref. So now an API ref effectively has additional field saying what type of an API ref. Now it can be of two different types. It can be like this, what I call complex or kind of traditional one, what we have today. Another one that will be just kind of strong reference.
References and persistent, the new reference type that can keep values of any type as strong ref counted references. And the ref count goes down to 0. And persistent references deleted. Okay. To support the new API ref semantic, 2 new functions are added. Create reference, a replacement for the old API that accepts a new parameter of ref type. Node API get reference type to get the type of an API ref.
Right.
Okay. And that sounds reasonable to me. Let's just take a quick look. API ref type. Get reference type, ref type. Spacing some comments, adjusting that. Okay, type that. Complex persistent, reference new, complex. Because this is an external, okay. And then, of course, some changes in the, okay, set weak or delete. Okay, yeah, we'll take a look at this one as well and then come back. Let's see. I think there are already some comments here.
Right. It was originally approved by this developer, but was approval against this old version and before our team reviewed it. So Legend Cast, like he put this block, but no one looked at this changed one. So I changed this design after that. So I want to kind of bring attention to the team to the new design, which I implemented after a last discussion about the stuff.
So what was the issue that blocked label as of this said to prevent unexpected landing? What was instead of adding the new, reuse the existing API ref. Okay, I'm going to add any versions related without the weak. Gotcha. Okay, so then that's sort of an API ref is what we were just looking at. And prefixing with Node API instead of, okay, yes. Can we then remove the blocked label?
No, the problem that we have already signed off, so we don't want to land it until the team reviews it.
I see. Okay. All right. And we can comment on. All right.
Cool. Thank you. It's all from me today.
Okay, we've got a lot of progress done. Okay. All right. Then does anyone else have any additional issues or PRs that they would like to discuss?
I have a thought about the future PR. I just want to kind of get your opinion. I want to add a new API, effectively, which would allow us to create new strings, which wraps up external strings. And I generally want to get your opinion. Is it something team will be interested to accept?
What do you mean by that? I don't follow it. By wrapping
currently, so now we need to create a new string. We typically given like whatever buffer, and then internally V8 has to copy to internal buffer to create this string. And if this string is relatively big, so technically we have effectively some kind of code duplication. But V8 itself allows us to have something called like external strings, right? So technically, buffer for the strings kept in native code rather than being copied to
V8. See.
But the negative part, like maybe not all JavaScript engines implement such thing like V8, and I just want to kind of get some thoughts from the team if it's something that we want to consider or not.
Gotcha. I think in order for that, we would need to do some sort of investigation to see how if the other engines do support this method of creating the JavaScript string pointing to data without being copied. I think that's something that we did a while back when we were looking at, I think it was references or something, I can't remember. But in order to sort of get a good feedback as to if the implementation, if the additional API makes sense, we would need to have some sort of understanding about the other JavaScript engines.
Do we have a list? Sorry to interrupt you.
I think that would warrant creating a post in the discussions so that we can keep track of that. And you were going to ask, do we have a list of the engines that we check? I assume.
Yes.
I'm going to try to, in the last couple of minutes, I'm going to try to look for I cannot, oh, well, it's not open, Hermes, because I remember doing it. And so we have a list somewhere. Okay. So this would be, I guess, a good list here. These 5. And I guess that would be from there. If we find that it's allowed by all of these, then it should be pretty safe to add to the core.
So can we consider this to be the list of all JavaScript engines which we want to support on a kind of ongoing basis?
I don't think I have the power to make that decision. All I know is that in the past, this has been the list that we've used for doing this type of analysis. I'm not sure if we have a explicit list that we do say that we support.
I have 2 engines with I think we're missing this list. Quick.js, I don't know if that's what's current status is. Developer still continues to maintain it or not. But I know that some projects actually using it even inside of Microsoft. and I don't know, Chakra probably end of life support, but
right. I think that I remember about Chakra, and I think since it was end of life, we're not really considering it that much anymore. But if you do an investigation for this string pointer, if you want to add any additional engines, the more that we investigate, I think the better off we are to make sure everything is okay. I think
good.
These were just the ones that popped up as possibly the most used, All right, so then that is it. We are out of time then, unless anybody has anything else that they'd like to quickly bring up. Nope, then that does it for today's meeting, and I will see you all online and in the meeting next week. Thank you, guys.
See you.
Ciao.
Thank you.
Bye.